I'm going to talk to you about borderline personality disorder, BPD, which is a kind of an intense label if you think about it. I'm going to go over some key features, 8 of them, and then I'm going to talk about the number one thing they can do to heal. So if you're a person struggling with this diagnosis, if you will, or you are in a relationship with someone, you've done your research and you're like, whoa, I think my partner has this. This is really important for you to know, for them to heal and get better, because not everybody's up for the journey, what this is going to take. It's a pretty intense move for them. Okay, so let's get into it. 8 features that define and describe borderline according to James Masterson. He's a psychiatrist, psychoanalyst. He's passed away, but he's written a couple books, Disorder of the Self, a few other books, and he's amazing with personality disorders. And let's just quickly say personality disorder, it's just an intense label, all right? You've heard of narcissism, antisocial, or borderline, or schizoid. These are labels that psychiatrists, psychologists, psychoanalysts use to try to help people, because it's like, if I know what's going on, then maybe I can help them. So if we take borderline as a broad definition, we can just say this is a person who struggles deeply in intimate relationships. They can be very high functioning out in the world, but when it comes to like a marriage or a long-term relationship or partnership, they will act out in a number of ways that are really detrimental to the success or failure of that relationship. So the first thing is emotional liability. That means they're labile with their emotions. They're up and down. They're all over the place. They can have huge, huge emotional swings and massive anger, sadness, anxiety. They have a tough time regulating their emotional experience and might, act out in blame, especially from an emotional place, and make really big life decisions from an extremely emotional place. Not ideal, right, to do that. Now, I should say also that borderline can coexist alongside childhood trauma, attachment issues, so many other challenges that we humans face, especially in those first few years. And this is an injury that occurs usually between 0 and 3 years old. And so people that have this have a hard time kind of remembering their past, or like, well, what went down? But usually there was some kind of a mother figure, sometimes a father figure, but often a mother figure that was either invasive, intrusive, neglectful, shaming, and mean, some kind of combo of those. And it resulted in a little kid who is terrified and who felt like they had to make their mom feel okay, so they had to merge with the mother, for example. It's one theory, to try to make the mother feel good and okay. So they developed a lot of strategies to avoid this underlying feeling of what Masterson calls the abandonment depression, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. Okay, the second sign is, or feature is just impulsive behavior. Like I said, they can end relationships quickly. They can fire a therapist. They often move through many therapists and they don't see that they're doing that. They'll usually find a reason why their therapist or coach or someone isn't the best fit for them. And they'll do that sometimes in a mean way, or they'll do that just sometimes quietly and just move on and just disappear and move on to the next person. They can do the same in relationships. They can make emotional, impulsive decisions like cutting or self-harm, unsafe sex, reckless driving, high-risk behavior, gambling, etc. The third key feature is a deep, deep fear of abandonment. And this is really where their work is don't leave me. I hate you, but don't leave me type of thing, which I'll talk about more in number 8. So this results in like clinging behavior or controlling behavior. They often feel like they're constantly being rejected, which then has them try to prove themselves over and over. So sometimes borderline people are very successful out in the world, at least in a career sense, for example. Fourth key feature is unstable relationships. That goes without saying here. jealousy, suspicion, I love you, I hate you type of behaviors. 5 is the fifth sign, fifth key feature is identity disturbance, which means I don't know who I am or what I want, or I do know who I am and what I want today, but tomorrow I don't. They struggle setting goals, making decisions. Again, big emotional swings lead to today I feel like it, tomorrow I don't. Sixth sign, black and white thinking. They see things in extremes, all or nothing. I want to marry you, I want to leave you. I hate you, I love you. Things are all good, things are really bad. There's a forgetfulness about there's a gray. There's this whole continuum about a gray area in life. 7, chronic feelings of emptiness, and this goes along with number 3, the fear of abandonment. This sort of hollow feeling inside that the borderline person feels, like an identity disconnection or disturbance. I don't know who I am. I don't know what my purpose is in life. I don't know what I really want, because they're in a huge strategy. They're wearing a mask of sorts to protect themselves from this abandonment and this fear of deep-seated fear of rejection. So I'll circle back to that. Number 8 is this I love you, I hate you. If you've ever been with a borderline person, again, 1 week they're really on and the sex is really good or they're really into you, and the next week they punish, reject, and want nothing to do with you. Or they feel rejected by you and then they lash out in anger thinking that you're rejecting them. And so they'll put and dump all their anger on you. That's another key feature, is there's a lot of angry, mean outbursts, name calling, putting people down, just an extreme anger that can feel really scary to be with. So sometimes a person who finds themselves with a borderline personality disorder can feel like a doormat, like I'm just going to go along to get along. Codependent people, for example, or people that tend to prioritize the needs of others over themselves. They're trying to always make the borderline happy at the expense of themselves. All right, and then what is this number one thing that the borderline personality disordered person has to do to heal? Now, there's many things that Masterson talked about, and I'm going to mention a few. So obviously seek professional help. Educate yourself, like go get a good therapist and actually stay with your therapist or coach even when you want to fire them, as an experiment to see if you can, just stay through the place in you that just is like, I got to fire this person. Because you'll do the same. Like a therapist or coach is a safer place to practice that with than an intimate partner. It's just the stakes are a little lower. Obviously read about it. I feel frustrated that, this term gets thrown around in a way to make people wrong, but sometimes, again, getting the proper, accurate label, as much as I hate labels myself, can help you find the best solutions and read books and listen to podcasts and find the best coaches and therapists who work with this so that you can get the help you need. So this is where labeling has a place, as much as it shouldn't feel like a life sentence, because you can heal from this. People do. I've seen it. And, I should mention that all of us have personality issues, depending on the first 3 years of our life and how severe the injuries were. So each of us does have to look in the mirror like, wow, do I struggle with some of this some of the time? There's a humanness, right, that we all struggle here. But these are extremes, right? And so when we see extremes, we are like, oh, that we're going to label that, and we're going to try to help that person because labeling them helps us find the path to healing. But the big one, the number one thing that the borderline needs to do, and this is very, very difficult, okay, and that is to face their abandonment depression. That's what Masterson called it. What does that mean, abandonment depression? It just means that, think about an infant, think about a 1-year-old who felt like they were abandoned by their mother and or father emotionally, energetically, and they had to become someone else. They were starting to feel rejected for their true self, and so they began to stuff it in exchange for a strategy that worked for taking care of the mother, for example. And so to heal, they have to go back inside themselves and face the fear of annihilation, the fear of abandonment, that if I'm myself, my true deeper essence of who I really am, deep down inside, and I may not know who that is, but as I discover that, my fear is people, my partner, life will reject me and I will be utterly alone. And to an adult, it's like you can cognitively go, what's the big deal? Like, it's nothing to be afraid of. But if you think about leaving a 1-year-old on its own, it's death. It's life or death. It's annihilatory to an infant. So the borderline person with this injury, and this is, you could say all of us too, with any big attachment injury, we have to go back and feel, we want to be totally ourselves and express our true emotions, how we really think and feel, and do that in the context of a relationship and find out, are people going to leave me? Am I going to be annihilated? And so their journey is to become empowered by facing that and working through that. And instead of doing that, so many borderline folks act out because they don't want to do that work. It's too scary, it's too annihilatory, so they will make you wrong, they'll make other people wrong, they'll make themselves wrong, they will go all over the place. I'll reject you before you reject me kind of stuff, because I don't want to face that. And so a very skilled coach or therapist holds their feet to the fire and says, no, we're facing this. This is your work. You've got to stay in relationship here and keep working through the annihilatory fears, the abandonment fears, and then you can find your way to wholeness, to back into being who you really are in the world, which is, that's where the fulfillment is. That's where we can have fulfilling, meaningful lives. So there's absolutely this quote, disorder of the self, is another way that Masterson put it, is very conquerable, it's doable. It's harder with covert narcissism, for example. Much harder because the covert narcissist doesn't have any interest or very little interest in actually doing the deeper work of taking responsibility. Borderline folks tend to come into treatment or therapy or coaching more than narcissistic folks. Other things, a couple other quick tips here for the borderline they can do. And this is all, again, according to Masterson and others who have studied these people for years. I have my own studies, but I'm not coming close to being an expert in this. Just trying to provide you some resources here. Is building a strong support network, practicing mindfulness, getting very good at repair. So anytime you mess up, you've got to repair and clean it up, taking responsibility for your part, being patient with yourself. And then, of course, there's dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, support groups that are very good with this type of challenge. CBT can work as well, cognitive behavior therapy, and there's many more. But again, the primary work is I've got to face the part of me that is terrified to be abandoned and to be rejected and to feel utterly alone. You've got to face that over and over until you're more and more okay with that's a possibility in life. As an adult, I might get rejected, I might get abandoned, and I'm okay. But it's like going back and getting that little teeny infant and saying, I'm here with you now. And you could do that through some IFS work, some internal family systems work, etc. So I hope this video has been helpful. Know that there's hope here. You can work through something like this. But again, if you're with someone with borderline, you are going to have a lot of relational challenges, and you have to decide together, are we up for healing and working through this as a team? Because you have issues also, both people have issues. It's not just the borderline person. Everybody's got issues. Can we work through our issues like a team and be transparent about them? Or are we going to not be able to name what's going on here and be frustrated that we can't repair and we're going to blame each other? That's going to go nowhere. So you have to decide. And when you decide to do this as a team, I think you're going to find a beautiful outcome, that the two of you can indeed have a successful relationship long term, but it's going to require some deep feeling, some deep work, good practitioners, good community, etc. Okay, subscribe to my channel. Make sure you do that. here. Leave a comment if this was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video.